President Biden has made his feelings toward Fox News reporter Peter Doocy pretty clear. He's gotten snappy with the journalist on more than one occasion, even going as far as calling him a stupid son of a... You remember. He went after Doocy again yesterday when Doocy pressed Biden on which issue, inflation or abortion, is the most important. And Biden responded like this.
Top domestic issue, inflation or abortion?
All important. Unlike you, there's no one thing. It crosses the board. Domestic, ask me about foreign policy too. There's multiple issues, and they're all important. And so, and we ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You know that old expression. Thank you.
Yeah. I have to agree with Joe Biden there. It's a ridiculous question. What is more important, your children's health or your job? What is more important, your ability to eat or ability to keep your food, your roof over your head? And, I mean, it's an absurd question. And I will, to Doocy's credit, say that the Democrats have been posing that question to themselves as well. As we've talked about on the show a number of times, Bernie Sanders has made the recommendation to the Democratic Party to expand its messaging to be inclusive of, but not exclusive to, abortion. And people have attacked him from the Democratic Party, arguing that that means he does not care about abortion, which obviously isn't true. You can do both. You have to do both.
Right. We saw Nancy Pelosi asked similarly by a mainstream or liberal journalist, I forget on which network, but it says it's not just Fox News or conservatives trying to gotcha over, whether it is. The question is, it's tactical. Obviously, it's apparent that, the Democratic platform has a million issues on it. So does the Republican platform. Honestly, both parties think a lot of things about a lot of different issues. The question is, where is the emphasis? And what I suspect Doocy was doing is trying to put the emphasis back to Democrats not, doing enough. The appearance that Biden is not addressing Americans' economic woes and is instead focused on abortion, which is there's a perception is not an issue that matters as vastly to as many people.
Yeah, and I think that Biden could respond by taking that on a little bit more strongly, saying, of course, the economy is paramount, and these issues are related as well. I saw a number of people online pointing out that so much of why people have unplanned pregnancies, so much of why people feel like they cannot have pregnancies that they otherwise might want to bring to term is an economic issue as well. So to the extent that you want to be able to support the
everything is an economic issue.
Well, yeah,
right?
yes.
Every single issue has some economic component
it's the economy, stupid, as they say.
Bill Clinton knew something that many subsequent political so-called experts don't.
Right. Well, President Biden has kept a fairly low profile this election cycle, not hitting the campaign trail since late summer, with talk swirling again about an imminent red wave. Bernie Sanders is taking matters into his own hands.
The progressive senator is planning on going to key states where he'll be attending 19 rallies in the hopes of rallying voters, especially young people, to get out and vote in the midterms. The young people. That strategy's never gone wrong before.
All right, Robby. Sanders will make stops in battleground states, especially those with hotly contested Senate races, but it remains to be seen which statewide candidates he might throw his weight behind. He's set to embark on the 2-week blitz on October 27th. So yes, it is true that I think it is naive to think that you can win an election solely on turning out young voters. I hope that changes at some point in the future, and I definitely think politicians should always continue to try to mobilize all constituents that don't vote in high numbers. But you also can't win without young voters, especially the Democratic Party that disproportionately does rely on young voters. You got to figure out how to turn them out. And Biden was suffering from really abysmal poll numbers with that constituency group. Poll numbers that, if they had been at that rate going into 2020, might have cost him the general election. So I do think that this is an important task.
Right. But it's not about numbers overall, right? It's about the numbers in the key, the sliver of states, the small number of municipalities where who controls our government will be decided. What the outcome of Georgia is, Pennsylvania, Nevada, etc. And I don't know. I've been looking more at the polling, and the wind has really returned to Republican sails as of late. The polls basically are showing like a slight Democrats ahead a little bit, but in the last several cycles, the polls have also have overstated. Democrats have not performed as well as polls would suggest. Getting to some kind of fundamental polling issues whereby low trust voters who do not, don't have trust in our system, who are not answering pollsters' questions, who are who are being evasive or don't want to discuss where they're thinking or what their views are. These are Republican voters, and they are just being undersampled across the board. That's becoming it's happened enough times now where I think it's hard to deny that phenomenon.
I think that's true. I think you also have to look at what happened in Kansas over the vote to have a state ban on abortion there, where in a state that nobody would ever consider a blue state or particularly a liberal bastion, at least not since its storied labor history, there was this overwhelming rejection of the idea of a statewide abortion ban from people who don't necessarily identify as progressive or liberal or anything of the sort, but who feel very strongly about that issue. And I think that's part of why you're seeing all of this weird pressure from folks like Peter Doocy to try to get the Democratic Party to make a choice between abortion and the economy, because it is the case that pairing those things together and really messaging hard on both of those issues could have a really strong result for Democrats insofar as it brings a bunch of moderates and conservatives out who do care very strongly about basic abortion rights and also do care about the economy.
But I think Republicans are being pretty message disciplined, with a couple exceptions, Lindsey Graham being a major one in the let's have a conversation about a national abortion ban. That aside, but nobody liked that he said that. That aside, Republicans are being pretty message disciplined about this issue right now. They're not talking about how, if we retake except for Lindsey Graham,
it doesn't matter anymore, Robby. The Republicans were the boys that called wolf. At the end of the day, they've been saying for decades now that they're not going to touch Roe, that they have no interest in overturning Roe, and the second they got the votes on the Supreme Court to do it, they did it. So no one, frankly, believes a word that's coming out of any Republican's mouths. Lindsey Graham might be the one that's saying the quiet part out loud, but everyone, I think...
I think they might absolutely try to do it if they got power, but they're just not saying they're going to do it.
Right, but the Democrats are ringing that bell loud and clear, and I think, as we saw in Kansas, and I think that as we've seen in polls across the country, there is a reason why Democrats are emphasizing the abortion message, and I don't think that's wrong. I just don't think it should be mutually exclusive to also talking about the economy.
I don't know. I'm looking at there's a near so the polls give obviously Republicans are a favorite to retake the House. I think that's a virtual certainty at this point. I can't imagine them possibly not taking it. So then it comes down to the Senate, where you have. We're 50-50 right now, and I personally think the Nevada race is really going to decide it. Georgia maybe. I'm
not so much in the prognosticating business. I think the real question is, why did we get to this place? How did it get so close in the first place? And if you really did care so much about abortion rights, why is it that you're dangling codifying Roe as this carrot at this stage, making people who at this point believes, after all of the obstruction that we've seen, the inability to get anything done, even with the Democrats having the House and the Senate, that afterward, either we're going to get so many seats in the Senate that you have a filibuster-proof majority, or you magically have a convinced Manchin and Sinema to go along with your agenda. Again, this is the boy who has called wolf on the Democratic side of the aisle. I think there's a lot of disaffection and lack of trust in the Democratic Party, and using an issue as important as abortion and dangling as a carrot to get people to the polls does feel cynical to a lot of people as well.
All right, well, we'll have more Rising right after this. Stay tuned.